But okay, we are going to shift gears. All right, we are going to talk about. I know Gary is supposed to be having a podcast with Green Beret Nap Time, and they're going to be talking about ballistics, right? I found a legal expert a lawyer who explains what the inconclusive ballistics conversation was all about. I thought it was super interesting. It does give a lot more understanding of what's legally going on inside the courtroom. Because really, what happens at the gun range or what happens out here in these YouTube streets in the suburbs isn't at play. What really is happening, or what's really important, is what's going to happen in that courtroom. And I thought that was important. This is a defense attorney. He's explaining what this whole conversation is about. And guess where the link is, everybody? Guess where the link is, everybody? Guess where it is? Write it in the chat. Where do you think the link is? Where do you think the link is to this? If you wanted to watch this video, where do you think it would be? Put it in the chat. Where do you think it is? Well, it's in the chat as well. But where was it before I put it in the chat? Where was it? Where do you think it was? Where do you think your boy had the link? Where did he have it? I got it ready. Put it in the chat while we were doing this, and then drop that green heart as well. Let's go.
Ballistics were inconclusive in the Charlie Kirk assassination case. Like I said, don't get your tinfoil hats in a big tizzy just yet. Let me explain what it really means. So in the high-profile capital murder prosecution of Tyler James Robinson for the September 10th, 2025 assassination of Charlie Kirk at the Utah Valley University, defense attorneys have filed a motion highlighting limitations in the ballistic evidence. Now, a report from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives indicates that examiners were unable to conclusively link the bullet fragments recovered during the victim's autopsy to the rifle allegedly associated with Robinson. Some people are like, oh, he's not guilty. Well, he's given the presumption of innocence, but it doesn't mean that he's innocent. So Robinson, who's only 22, faces aggravated murder charges with a victim targeting enhancement and other felonies. Prosecutors intend to seek the death penalty, and they're alleging that he traveled approximately 3 hours from his home in southern Utah to carry out the shooting during a Turning Point USA event on the university campus there in Orem, Utah. So Kirk, who is only 31, co-founded the organization, was fatally shot in the neck while speaking outdoors. Now, the defense motion submitted a request to postpone the upcoming preliminary hearing, and they note that the ATF's analysis could not identify the recovered bullet fragment as having been fired from the rifle tied to Robinson. So the attorneys state that they may introduce testimony from the ATF firearm analyst as potentially exculpatory evidence and require additional time to review the full case file, protocols, and related forensic material. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is conducting further investigation and testing as well. So like I said, this news broke yesterday, and it generated significant discussion with some speculating about, broader conspiracies and additional perpetrators. Well, such interpretation, it warrants just a little bit of restraint. All right. So I just became a forensic ballistic expert yesterday. Let me fill you in. Okay. Now, am I a ballistic expert? No, but I've handled lots of shooting cases over the years. All right. So that's where this is coming from. Practical knowledge. So forensic ballistic comparisons rely on microscopic markings known as striations. They're imprinted on a bullet by the firearm's barrel. But when a projectile strikes bone, particularly at a high velocity, it frequently deforms fragments or becomes distorted. Now, the physical alteration often renders the individual characteristics markings from the gun unreliable or impossible to match definitively to a specific weapon. Scientific literature on ballistic trauma consistently documents that bone impacts increase fragmentation of both the bullet and the surrounding skeletal material, complicating microscopic analysis without invalidating other lines of evidence. So Inconclusive ballistic results in cases involving bone strikes are not uncommon in forensic practice and do not inherently disprove a connection between a suspect and a crime. They represent one component of the larger piece of the evidentiary record. So, like I said, don't put your tinfoil hats on just yet and say, oh my gosh, Tyler Robinson's been framed. There must have been a second shooter. No. Okay. Lots of times you have shooting cases. They have a gun. They have a bullet that struck something. It was completely deformed. And although it's the same caliber, they can't say that it came specifically from that rifle due to the fragmentation, deformation of the bullet itself. So put the tinfoil hat back into the drawer. All right.
But I like my tinfoil hat. I got tinfoil hat laced hats, and you can buy them at JWhit.com. They have tinfoil laced in them. Like, I mean, I stay ready, man. I stay ready. This is a very interesting. So, all right. So hopefully that made sense. And by the way, again, link down in the description if you want to go back over that and listen again. I do think that makes a lot of sense. Now, of course, we can have the ballistics conversation and all that kind of stuff like that. But this is how an actual attorney is going to deal with this topic and how they've dealt with this multiple times over. So that was the point of this whole thing. So let's keep it going.
Anyway, the motion from the defense further details the volume of discovery material provided to the defense, including approximately 20,000 electronic files comprising audio, video, documents, social media data, DNA.
Hold on. Did you just hear that? How many files they have in this trial? I mean, in this case, let me back that up a little bit. Did y'all hear that? You might have missed it.
Fragmentation, deformation of the bullet itself. So put the tinfoil hat back into the drawer. All right. Anyway, the motion from the defense further details the volume of discovery material provided to the defense, including approximately 20,000 electronic files comprising audio, video.
20,000 files. 20,000. So I'm not trying to say that, because they have 20,000 files, that guarantees it's a slam dunk. But is it possible, if they have 20,000 files, that there's files that you and I have not seen, evidence that has not been shared with the public, that's been put out there to the great unwashed? Is that possible? Like, the idea and the notion that we have enough information to make a determination now, and they just literally said 20,000 pieces of information. That's crazy work. Man, shout out to Mike. Mike blessing folk with memberships again. Y'all make sure you say thank you to Mike. Thank you, Mike. Bless you, man. That's a couple for sure. That's a quite a bit. But that's including audio files. Who knows? That could be a 3-hour interrogation. That could be video files. That could be video evidence, 8-hour video CCT camera or whatever like that. I mean, that's a lot of information. So shout out for sure. Okay. Let's keep this going. Let's go.
Documents, social media data, DNA reports, and crime scene documentation. Defense counsel emphasizes that the complexity of analyzing the mixed DNA samples, which may require input from forensic biologists, geneticists, and statisticians to assess the reliability and the methodology employed by the FBI and the ATF. The defense also argues that hundreds of additional hours are needed to process this material and identify any outstanding items before determining readiness for the preliminary hearing. The prosecutors say we're ready to go, and they plan to present evidence through limited witnesses at the hearing, which is all that's required at a preliminary hearing. They put a couple of lead detectives up. They regurgitate what's in the affidavit for arrest warrant. Guess what? Probable cause exists. You think the judge is going to throw it out? Well, no, a judge has already found probable cause. Remember that, ladies and gentlemen. The defense is getting a little too spun up in this particular situation. So like I said, they're going to have hearing, law enforcement testimony regarding the crime scene, searches, statements from Robinson's parents and roommate, as well as forensic summaries. And the defense anticipates potential hearsay elements and has expressed concern over the timeline for a thorough preparation. Guess what? Hearsay is admissible at a preliminary hearing. Now, you can't go 5 layers deep into hearsay, but it's permissible at a preliminary hearing. It's simply a screening device. It's not a trial. The rules of evidence are relaxed because it is a preliminary hearing. Now, for those who don't recall, Robinson surrendered to police following a brief manhunt, and he has not yet entered a formal plea because we're not at the arraignment yet. Anyway, earlier court proceedings have addressed issues such as media access, courtroom restraints.
That's right. They haven't arraigned him yet. Wow, I just totally forgot that. Wow, we got a long way to go. Good gracious, man.
And prosecutorial conflicts, which the judge denied, but the case continues to move forward. Now, this is a deliberate attempt by the defense to slow down the judicial process in a, what should be a straightforward homicide, but the defense is going to make it difficult. Remember this. I've told you this before, right? This is what we tell you. We tell you the inside baseball stuff. We tell you the inside the prosecuting defense thinking. All right. It is a death penalty case. The prosecutors say they're going to do that. Prosecutors don't go death penalty unless they're pretty darn sure they can prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense then goes into, we've seen it in the DeBale case. We've seen it in the Koberger case. The defense strategy is simply to delay. They hope that the evidence will disappear. They hope that witnesses disappear. People lose interest in it, just kind of wear the prosecution down, so to speak. That is the philosophy in a death penalty case. Just the way it is, because the longer you delay, nothing bad happens. That's it. All right. This is a pretty straightforward case, right? Guy speaking, guy up on building, shoots gun, seen leaving through video, leaving gun. His roommate tells the world that the shooter allegedly confessed to him. Parents say he confessed to him. He apparently confessed as well. So, like I said, all this talk about some crazy internet people saying that, it's inconclusive. Therefore, the case, oh my God, there's reasonable doubt. No, if you're thinking that, that's not the case at all, ladies and gentlemen. Come back to reality.
Oh, sorry.
Like I said, take off the tinfoil hat,
okay,
put it in the drawer, and save that for the next great conspiracy theory. This is a straightforward case. Hopefully the judge says, let's move along and have this preliminary hearing. The defense can ask for additional time, but this is their strategy: delay. And as always, that's right, Mr. Robinson is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt. That applies to everybody here on Crime Talk, just so we're clear. Anyway, Joseph Duggar.
Okay. All right. So I thought that was super insightful because he's actually in the field of prosecuting and defending. So it's not just armchair quarterbacking. It's not just pre-K law student type of vibes. This man actually does it. So I can accept. I like the fact that he said, look, this is a straightforward case. We need to go ahead and move this thing along, which I think is super insightful. Like, we should keep it moving. So now I guess the question is, why would somebody want to slow this down? Because why not? If you know that Tyler Robinson is innocent, you would want him to get his day in court as quickly as possible, because you know that he's going to be found innocent, right? That would make sense. Why would you want to delay it if you know that he's innocent? Something to think about. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the JWhit Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please do me a favor and hit me up with that 3-piece special. Like the video, subscribe, and of course, share it with somebody who would also enjoy this type of content. And make sure you leave a comment, because I do pin the best comments to the top. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace.